everyone. Welcome to this evening's webinar entitled Pathways to the C-Suite, Empowering Black Women Physicians in Leadership. My name is Dr. Chrislyn Washington Kelly, and I am the current chair of the Council on Concerns of Women Physicians, which is a standing council of the National Medical Association. This is our second quarterly webinar, and we are thrilled to have you join us for this powerful and timely discussion on advancing Black women physicians into executive leadership roles. Black women remain underrepresented in the C-suite of healthcare organizations despite our excellence, leadership, and commitment to patient care. Navigating the path to executive roles comes with unique challenges, from systemic barriers to limited mentorship opportunities. However, leadership is within reach, and today's conversation is about equipping you with the insights, strategies, and networks to get there. Given the wealth of knowledge and experience centralized in the NMA, this evening's webinar is co-hosted by the Physician Executive Session of the National Medical Association. Dr. Reed.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kelly, for that wonderful introduction. I am so excited to be here. I am co-chair of the Physician Executive Section, Dr. Michelle Reed. Little known fact, the National Medical Association was founded in 1895 in Atlanta, Georgia, and the original name was the National Organization of Colored Physicians, Dentists, and Pharmacists. We all know about 2.8% of the Black female physicians are us. And we are here today to figure out and to get some little snippets as to how we can progress in the C-suite, which is very important given these trying times that we're in right now, especially in the field of healthcare. I have the honor of introducing our 125th president of the National Medical Association, Dr. Virginia Kane, and she is the director and the chief medical officer of the Marion County Public Health Department and is an associate professor of medicine at the Indiana University School of Medicine Infectious Disease Division. She has so many numerous things that we can discuss about her, but we are going to jump right in so that she can lead us off with her opening remarks. Dr. Kane.
Well, thank you, Dr. Reed and Dr. Kelly, for that wonderful introduction. Ladies, we're going to have an exciting evening tonight, and for any males who are joining us, you're going to learn a lot about us and what it takes to be a woman in medicine that knows how to inspire and be a leader. And so let me just first say, women, we've made significant strides in the field of medicine, often in the face of insurmountable odds. And approximately half of medical school graduates now are women. But there's still an evident gender gap when it comes to positions of leadership in medicine. For example, only 25% of full professors are women, but only 18% of department chairs are women. But now, unfortunately, when we look at women of color, our numbers are even lower because just in the last decade, we've only increased minority African-American female faculty by just 1% in the last decade. So, we have our work cut out for us. And remember, the National Medical Association, we were known as the only medical association that advocated and helped pass the legislation for Medicaid and Medicare, not any other medical association. We were behind Lyndon B. Johnson in 1965 signing that legislation. But I just want to talk a little bit about some great women who have been the majority of members in the NMA in the past that have just inspired us. Now, I'm from Arkansas. So Dr. Edith Irby Jones was the first Black student in the South to be admitted to a medical school, but she was the first Black female president of the NMA. Now, Dr. Patricia Bath, ophthalmologist, the first Black female ophthalmologist chair in a major school of medicine at UCLA. But all you ladies out there might have had some cataract surgery or whatever. She did the patent for the first probe. She's got to be extremely wealthy, I would think, by now. Dr. Marilyn Gaston, who's my heart, University of Cincinnati graduate. She was the first Black female that did an incredible discovery for the treatment of sickle cell disease. Our own Vivian Penn, if you know her, the first black woman, but the first woman put in charge of the NIH Office of Women's Research. Rosalind Payne Epps, the first Black to present and be president of the American Medical Women's Association. And listen, if you want to reach the stars, who can forget Dr. Mae Jemison, the first Black in space? And so I can go on, but my love is Dr. Jocelyn Elders from Arkansas, the first Black Surgeon General, followed by, of course, our own Regina Benjamin, and Camissa Corbett. She's the first lead scientist to develop the Moderna vaccine. You know, I'm a bug doctor. So we've had some incredible generations, and I may miss some famous people who have inspired us, and we never want to forget Rebecca Crumbler, the first Black physician in medicine, did inspiring work taking care of freed slaves, but she even wrote a book that just tells you how incredibly smart we are. So we have countless Black physician leaders who inspire us. They're doing groundbreaking work. They know how to do patient-centered care. I want you to hear this panelist, to hear some of their stories, and know we want to know all of you. We want to get to learn all of you, because without you, you've made the difference in this country for thousands, hundreds of thousands of patients. And so we really appreciate you. And I look forward to a great webinar learning about some of this future young generational leaders and the work that they're continuing to do today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kane. Thank you for those opening remarks and reminding us of where we came from so that we know where we're going. So tonight, we're honored to have four esteemed panelists with us this evening who have successfully broken through barriers to have a seat at the table. They will share their journeys, lessons learned, and practical steps for positioning yourself for leadership. Whether you're early in your career or already in administrative roles, this discussion will provide valuable guidance on advocacy, mentorship, entrepreneurship, and more. Thank you for being part of this critical conversation. Let's get started. I'd first like to introduce our moderator, Dr. Tracy Straker. Dr. Tracy Straker is a professor of anesthesiology at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine and an attending physician at Montefiore Medical Center in the Bronx, New York. Dr. Straker can also serve double duty tonight as a panelist. She has so many degrees and positions. She serves as the Vice Chair of Clinical Operations, Director of Civility and Workplace Standards Inclusion, and the Director of Advanced Airway Fellowship at Montefiore Medical Center. She also holds the rank of Adjunct Clinical Professor of Medicine at CUNY School of Medicine in New York City. She holds a number of positions on local and national boards. Her bio is listed in the program in the comments section. And as for the NMA, she is the chair of the anesthesia section and is also a current member of the Council on Concerns of Women Physicians. Thank you so much, Dr. Straker. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Crystalline. I have to tell you that I am so excited this evening to welcome these four women who are going to educate us and give us the knowledge that and the inspiration to go on from tomorrow. So I'd like to ask our four panelists if they would kindly introduce themselves, give us their titles, and a brief summary of their pathway to the C-suite. Let's start off with Dr. Hall.
Good evening. I'm first going to apologize. I have a touch of laryngitis, so I'm going to try to do the best that I can, but I did not want to miss tonight. So I will talk for as long as I can. So I'm going to keep my journey brief. I'm grew up in New York, and went to UMDMJ for med school and became a physiatrist. My father had 8 strokes when he was in med school. And all I wanted to do was take care of patients. I love talking to patients, caring for patients, and all I wanted to do was be a doctor. I never thought I would be in the C-suite, much less an administrator, never. But sometimes you do things just because God has given you the talent and you do it well. And then it was by chance one day I was, joking around with my CMO and he was leaving and he said, why don't you become CMO? And I'm like, I'm an independent contractor. And that's all she wrote. And that started my journey about 18 years ago. So I've been in Maryland. I've been vice president of medical affairs, president of a community hospital, site executive of a wellness campus, and for 2 years ran the COVID hospital for the state of Maryland. And currently now, for 2.5 years, I'm senior vice president and chief medical officer for Tidal Health, a new healthcare system out on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. So looking forward to hearing from everybody and hearing everyone's journey. And this is amazing. And it's great when ladies can get together and tell their stories.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hall. I'll ask Dr. DeFore Jones to give us her introduction of herself, her title, and her brief summary of her journey.
Hi, again, like Dr. Hall, I'm fighting a cold too. Um, I'm Monique DeFore Jones. I'm the Associate Chief over at Labor and Delivery at Long Island Jewish Cats. Prior to that, I had a private practice for 23 and a half years, and I do the administrative work on our labor and delivery unit in making sure that we can stay within equitable care for our birthing moms and making sure that everybody remains safe. It's been a journey, to say the least. It wasn't always a straight road getting here. Like I said, I ran a private practice for 23 and a half years and then transitioned into this role. But it's been a welcoming role that I do accept and have learned along the way and happy to bring people forward as well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jones. Dr. Ashong.
Thank you so much. First of all, I'd like to open up by saying heartfelt, happy Black History Month to everyone on the call and to our austere participants. Greetings from Connecticut. I am a forever NMA person. I am the founding president of the Connecticut NMA State Society and a past Board of Trustees member and the co-chair of the mighty Physician Executive Section. We're happy to participate in this tonight. I am an OBGYN by training. I've had progressive leadership roles in academic practice as well as organized medicine and in managed care administration as a full-time health strategist and a chief medical officer at United Health Group, as well as CVS Health. Needless to say, today we are in an all-new era in the healthcare industry, whether you're in clinical practice or pharma or device or government or consulting. This is a new day for medical education, as well as for the DEI and health equity space. It is my great pleasure to be with all of you tonight for this very critical and timely discussion, not only for us, but for the populations we represent and for the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ashong. And lastly, Dr. Latanya Washington.
Hi, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm excited to be here amongst several of these ladies who I haven't seen since our NMA national meeting last year. So very excited to be here. Welcome to everyone. So for me, I am originally from Mississippi. I was a kid that always knew I wanted to be a physician. If you ask my mom, she says that's the only thing I ever said I wanted to become. And so really fashioned my life on becoming a physician. In doing that, I thought that I would be a community physician, have my own practice, always said I wanted to be a pediatrician. Once I got into medical school, I attended University of Tennessee Health Science Center in Memphis, Tennessee. I interacted with an African American female resident who was med peds, and I was like, these people are sharp. So decided that I wanted to do med peds. Did a med peds residency in Arkansas and really started my career out as a hospitalist, taking care of both adult and pediatric patients, and just really did a number of different things in the healthcare space. I was a hospitalist medical director. I became a medical director and CMO of a long-term acute care hospital. I transitioned back into acute care hospitalist work. And in that role, I started noticing that I was being tapped to be on a lot of committees when there were changes that needed to happen within the healthcare space. The administrators would come and talk to me about it and say what were my thoughts, what did I think would be, the feedback from other physicians. And then there were other health systems that I had been a part of where a lot of the decisions that were being made, I didn't necessarily agree with and I didn't understand them. So I did choose to get an MBA back in 2012. And my thoughts for that, I can't take credit for this saying, but when I started my MBA program, I did Auburn University Physician Executive MBA. And one of my classmates in that class said, he didn't understand what the administrators were asking him to do. He didn't understand the reasoning behind it. And so he said, it's a lot easier for me to learn how to do your job than it is for you to learn how to do mine. And so I was like, yes, that's exactly it. And so really started to do progressive leadership in the hospital-based space. I was a physician advisor for a acute care hospital for about 3 years. And then back about 4 years ago, I transitioned into a chief medical officer position at an acute care hospital. So I'm chief medical officer at Methodist North Hospital here in Memphis. And then in addition to that, I did a lot of other community-based work. I am a past president of our local NMA chapter, the Bluff City Medical Society, and currently serve as the president of our Bluff City Medical Society Foundation, which is our 501c3 arm for our medical society. And then of course, I think we all worked on COVID task force in our communities and did a lot of work in that space. So that's really has been my journey. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So let's jump right in because we have a lot of space to cover this evening. So ladies, what inspired you to pursue a leadership role in healthcare? Please just jump in. It's a discussion.
I can jump in and just say that, for a lot of us, I think that we've always been told that we were bossy, and so we translate that to us having leadership skills, being able to get things done and get the plan placed in motion and executed. And so I'll say I've always had leadership skills because I've always been told that I was bossy. But even, there are times when I sat back and thought about it, like, oh, I probably could do that, but I wasn't always encouraged. And I will tell you, this was back when I was a regular staff hospitalist at an acute care hospital. I was walking down the hall, minding my business, and one of the hospital transporters said, "That's Dr. Washington. She gonna be the chief medical officer of the hospital one day." And so just having someone who really didn't know anything about how I cared for patients, didn't know anything about, my qualifications other than the fact that I was a physician to really identify me and say that, they could see that in me just by the way that I carried myself. That was really, really encouraging to me.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to share?
Well, I'll say I told a little bit about I was medical director for a brain injury unit, and sometimes you're in places and spaces where we just do, right? We're problem solvers. We're smart. We're listeners. We're communicators, right? So a lot of time these are like some basic skills that are needed for leadership. And a lot of times, sometimes we do things even though there may not be any reward. We just do it because it's the right thing to do. And over time, somebody notices. And over time, somebody encourages and say, hey, we're looking for this. we've seen how you've handled this, this, and this. We've seen how you've carried yourself. We've seen how you wasn't your problem, but you solved it anyway, right? So it is those little pieces of what I called your professional journey belt, where you actually make your notches. You just don't graduate with a degree, get an MBA, and then all of a sudden become a leader. You really have to do the steps and put in the time and put in the energy to be able to build up those skills that someone will notice, or you open your own door. I've every job that I've had before this job, I've been asked to take. I've gotten a phone call. Hey, we need this to be done. Can you come and help us? Oh, we need this to be done. Are you available? So you want to be that person that people will say, hey, I need this to get done. I've seen what they've done in other areas. And for me, I've created almost every one of those jobs, write my own job description and like, oh, this is what you want. This is what I can do. Give me the tools and the authority and I can get it done. So that kind of mentality and thought process is how you build your building blocks that builds up your leadership skills to get you where you ultimately want to be.
Thank you.
So I agree with what Trudy is saying. It's putting all the necessary components into your toolbox, and those toolboxes is what's going to help you grow and become the leader that you are. And every day that you go and you do something different, you're strengthening those tools, you're sharpening those edges. And by sharpening those edges, excuse me, that allows your leadership skills to grow and to become stronger. And people see that in you, and then they then open those doors to be that person, to be the sponsor, to pull you in to that position that you're going in that is needed for that C-suite. So it's extremely important to make sure that your leadership skills are strong, and it grows over time. So if you're starting and you're a junior, know that you will get through those doors by just participating and being part of the National Medical Association and coming to meetings like this. It will help you build those leadership skills.
Thank you.
And this is
Dr.
Natalie Chung chiming in, just to dovetail on the comments in terms of why leadership. As was referenced earlier, of the million practicing physicians in the US, approximately 2.6 of those are Black women. And for me, as the first doctor in my family, as with other ladies on tonight's call, all too often I saw in training that our voice and the representation of our concerns were not there. And what inspired me to take on leadership roles, not only in clinical practice, but also in organized medicine and medical societies, and then in the community, was to have the voices and the concerns that we have that are unique to us expressed. Because once again, in these conversations that happen within power and leadership, if we are not represented, we are likely not to be part of the decision-making processes, and we're not to be part of what ultimately is decided, and then we are shortchanged. So my motivation comes from doing better for our community.
Thank you, ladies, for that wisdom. Dr. DeFore Jones, can you share with us what are some of the biggest challenges that you faced on your path to executive leadership?
A lot of biases, implicit and explicit biases. I trained in a program where the first person of color, I'm an OBGYN, was 10 years before me in residency. And then somebody was 8 years after me. And in leading up to this, and I see your face, Tracy, because again, it's so different now, right? And you felt so isolated. But I think it gave me the foundation and the strength to realize that you have to fight, right? And we are all fighters. We come from fighting families. We wouldn't be where we are if we didn't have the strength, right? And the growth to fight, because that's how we came along. But it helped me to build the foundation that I needed to be able to push past just being a generalist OBGYN and then coming into the faculty role and also building and knowing that I needed more. And by needing more, I went and did a dual MBA MS program, and that MS part of it was in leadership and policy. So that helps to strengthen the foundation as well. And that helped to streamline and help to navigate and open the path for which I took to become where I am today.
Thank you. Dr. Washington, could you take that question for us as well, please?
Yeah, so for me, one of the things that I found very valuable was really gaining the additional insight from getting an MBA. And so I will say that, that it's not for everyone. So everyone won't find that they have to have a business or healthcare administrative degree. It's just what works for you. However, what we can acknowledge is that a lot of times for us as Black women to be considered, we have to have all of the qualifications and sometimes be overqualified. And so, utilizing that time and that space to really gain as much knowledge as possible to really be able to, when you walk into that room, being very prepared and being confident in your knowledge base and being able to speak to the other folks that are in the room and in those leadership positions that are talking about kind of the business side of medicine that is, pretty foreign to folks who are mostly focused on the clinical aspect of medicine. And so, really, as physician leaders, we have a unique perspective in that a lot of people who are in healthcare leadership don't have the clinical background and they're not physicians. And so when we have a very strong business background, then we're really able to bring a lens of equity to the space where a number of the decisions that I make for my healthcare facility and oftentimes influencing the healthcare system is with the lens of caring for patients and doing the thing that's best for the patient. But then when you also have that business background, you're able to consider the financial aspects, the quality aspects, and all of the other factors that influence decisions in the healthcare space while merging it with caring for patients. And so that's one of the things that I thought was extremely valuable for me as I made the journey into healthcare. I think also talking to a number of individuals, like networking to be able to find mentors and sponsors, talking to different people just to see what options are available. For me, I feel like my healthcare leadership journey has been very traditional, where I was a hospitalist, I transitioned into hospital leadership. But there's so many other things out there. Oftentimes we think only about hospitals and health systems and insurance companies, but they're, pharmaceutical companies, but there are a number of other things out there. So I would say network and talk to as many people as you possibly can.
So I see most of this panel has gone on to pursue a secondary degree, but are there alternative ways that physicians can gain business and leadership skills without formal degrees?
Well, I'm going to say I don't have an MBA, MPH, or MHA. And sometimes it's experience. So for 25 years, I owned and ran my own private practice, 4 locations. I was commissioner of hospitals for 8 years. And the hospitals for Maryland's very different, the payer system. So pretty much I had all the CEOs of the big hospitals trying to have me understand their hospital books because I had to advocate for them on the commission for their rates. So my journey was very typical. Unfortunately now, because so many people are getting MBAs and MHAs for some of these positions, you're not even looked at because you don't have those degrees for certain positions. But sometimes if you have enough experience, that could actually substitute, but it has to be experience that's relevant to the job that you're going to get. So it's been a very difficult. I found when I was at a place where I wanted to leave, I found I was competing against people with MBAs and MHAs. But then my all of my accomplishments and all of my um, acumens of things that I did kind of landed me my next, I call gig, and my final gig, hopefully, for me. But it was because I have had like at least 30 years of leadership experience. And I want to say NMA. I want to talk about NMA. It was NMA that started my leadership journey. I came to Baltimore. Well, Dr. Willarda Edwards pulled me in. She said, look, we need to do a fundraiser. Can you help us? One of the things I had a very good skill at, I could throw a party and I could raise money. And I did it so well. And they were like, well, can you be on the executive team? Then can you be president of Baltimore, Monumental? Then I was Maryland State president for 20 years. Then I've been chair for the region for 2 years. So it's really that NMA journey and that leadership at the NMA that actually opened a couple of other doors. It opened the commissioner job because I was an NMA president. So a lot of times, believe it or not, don't underestimate the value and the power of NMA leadership, local, state, that actually can open up some doors because it shows that you have the ability to work with physicians, collaborate with physicians, and it's a different skill set that you don't get with the MBA and MHA.
Dr. Achong, can we hear your perspective?
No, I totally agree with my fellow panelists and Dr. Hall, your comment about the importance of networking. One important quote from one of my favorite actors, Viola Davis, is that the only difference between women of color and any other woman is opportunity. And what I have found as someone who also has a degree, even with the MBA or the MPH or the MHA or whatever degree it is, and the pedigree, it may not be a meritocracy. If we truly had a meritocracy here in the USA, Black women would be running everything because we have, as a demographic, we have more degrees than anyone. I think what's more important and what is increasingly more important is networking. So you have to work your network as we're doing tonight. I hope that people will take the opportunity to connect after this meeting, and this will spur connections that maybe were not there before. Some of my best gigs, if you will, have been through the NMA, and I'm thankful to all of my colleagues across the country that have been a support to me in my leadership journey across different spaces. But I would add to that, that as much as a degree is important, it's not everything, because we know when we look across the industry that most folks who have these high degrees, who are physicians, do not have these postdoctoral degrees. So as much as it's important in terms of knowledge and having that training, particularly as healthcare evolves, it's very, very important, critically important for people to know what you do and to be able to support you. And I think that's where some of the concerns happen because we are so underrepresented in healthcare leadership spaces.
Thank you, Dr. Achong. And transitioning on to what you said, how do you balance staying true to yourself while leading in predominantly white and male spaces?
Now, is that coming to me first?
I'm going to go right to you. Continue on.
All right, I love it. Well, that's a really profound question, one that, quite frankly, I still grapple with in terms of what is the answer. I think that the walk of being Black and female in America continues back. I have a daughter, and I talk to her about these things. I talk about, particularly this month, I personally reflect on history. I'm a big Black history buff, and I think about what we did as a people to get where we are today. It is not easy. It is a challenge. I think that that challenge, the specter of that will be, I think, increased as geopolitical changes happen. So I think for me, it's staying grounded in who I am and what I represent and having that integrity to stand for what is right. And there may be a cost to that, and data would prove that there is a cost for standing up for the principles of health equity. There is a cost for speaking about workforce diversity. And I think that that's why we find community within the National Medical Association, where we bring all specialties and physicians across all aspects of the industry together, because in community we stand stronger. So their struggle is real, but I believe that we are making progress, but there's still a lot more to go.
Thank you. Dr. Jones, would you like to manage that question, please?
Sure, thank you. I think it's a really important question, but I think it starts with being true to yourself. And by doing that is you know who you are and you know your foundation. And by being the person that you are, that is how you get that message out to everybody. And what do I mean by that? I mean, you have to know how to take an adverse event and change it into the growth so that we can continue to grow. NMA builds a foundation for us, right? We learn a lot from each other, and we're able to share that with our community. We're able to share that with the people who need to know that. And I think this helps to build the leadership strengths that we have so that we can continue to grow and be able to foster leadership as a whole, especially in our younger residents and attendings coming out. They need to have the foundation, and we are the ones that are responsible to help pull them through and guide them in the area that they need to go. So getting them involved in NMA early, they'll be able to be involved in programs like this and see the growth that is needed. So to me, I think this is so very important.
Thank you. Let's talk about imposter syndrome. Is it real or imagined? Dr. Hall.
I'm going to pair two questions together. The first thing for everybody on this call, know that you belong. Act like you belong. Speak like you belong. Listen like you belong. People will try to make you feel like you don't belong. And I refuse to give anybody of color or without color that amount of authority over my life. The only person that has authority over my life is God, right? That's it. So you have to speak in that truth and you have to act in that truth. So what do you have to do? You got to show up on time. You got to be put together, right? They're looking to see what your hair, your nails, your clothes, they're checking you out, right? Yes, exactly. So you have to make sure, and then don't always be the one that speaks up in the room. A lot of times I listen so much and they're waiting for me to say something. I don't want to be the one that they're going to be, oh, there she goes again. Oh, we're in the meeting. No, I just listen. I take notes. And the piece about that is that if you exude that, then you will be respected. And one of the biggest things is you have to figure out within your space, how do you command respect? I'm gonna tell a story. My last job, most of my physicians, mostly male, Middle Eastern, right? African, sometimes our own doesn't treat us with respect, and also Caucasian. I had to deal with a different kind of demographics and how they just treat women, much less women of color. New job, 95% of my physicians are Caucasian, right? First meeting, problem, conflict. One of my physicians, Italian, hothead, middle of a meeting, walks out the room. Just middle sentence, just walks out. You know, staff is like, oh my God, aren't you gonna run after him? What you gonna do? Like, let him go. You gotta figure out, how do I actually get the result that I want without having to be that person, right? So what I did, I called the president of the medical staff, who's also Italian. I said, this is what your Italian brother did. You need to get him in check, because the next conversation is going to be with me. You got to put a little bit of fear, but you got to also kind of have that piece where I am demanding respect. I give you respect, and I demand respect. You always want to be firm, but fair. And if you actually progress like that, and the medical staff and those around you know that's who you are, that's how you move ahead. That's how you're respected, not by the title, but how you treat people and how you allow people to treat you. That's so important. So, my last thing I want to say, you belong.
Thank you, Dr. Hall. Dr. Achong.
Um, this is also a profound question. I, for one, I don't ascribe to this notion of imposter syndrome, but because by definition, for us, we have done above and beyond to even be in the room. So for me, it's not something that I personally receive. And I would say, dovetailing on Dr. Hall's comments, that we as Black women, to be in the room, we have to have exceeded and then exceeded more. So for me, I stand in the power of knowing that to be there, it is to have power in and of itself. So I think it's a counterculture notion that I myself, as a Black woman, don't ascribe to.
Thank you. Dr. Washington, what are your thoughts on imposter syndrome?
Yeah, I agree with many of the remarks that have already been said. And, I heard an interesting concept, and I agree with it. I don't really subscribe to imposter syndrome, but rather imposter treatment. Because I think that we all know that we have the qualifications to be in the space. It's that someone else feels that we're an imposter. And as long as I don't receive that, then I don't have a syndrome. Someone is treating me as if I am an imposter. And so I think looking at it from that perspective really does change how you view your situation. I personally have never felt imposter syndrome. Um, I have felt that other people didn't think I needed to be in the space. But when I feel that way, then it's my job to prove to them that I do deserve to be in the space. Not in a way that is boisterous or cocky, but that I produce the results that, need to be produced. And so that's really how I manage that. But I do understand that there are folks in various spaces that don't feel as confident. And again, one of the suggestions I had before, kind of the education piece. When we talk about leadership, leadership is a skill that can be developed. There are millions of books out there. There are millions of courses out there that you can take on leadership. There are organizations for physician leadership. There's the physician executive section. You can get certificates in leadership. And so in growing in leadership, it's something that you have to invest in. It's not necessarily something that, I mean, okay, it comes natural because I said I was bossy and I had leadership skills earlier in this webinar. But to grow in leadership and to be a successful leader, I've had to really work to develop that and develop skills that I may not have been strong in earlier on in my journey. And I think it's a continuous learning that we will have to subscribe to be successful in physician leadership.
Thank you. We're not doctors 24/7. We're wives, mothers, friends, sisters. How do you maintain work-life integration while managing your leadership responsibilities? Dr. Jones.
I have to be honest, sometimes it can be a challenge, but I always try and put God first. And with putting God first, it manages me to get my family um, dynamics in order. I am a mother of two children, with the oldest being mentally retarded, autistic, ADHD, nonverbal. It hasn't been easy over this journey in this leadership role, having a disabled, lifelong um, child that will with challenges. Um, so I can't say I've gotten it right all of the time, but every day is a learning process, just like leadership is a learning process. But I'm happy to say that I think the balance has balanced out over the years to be able to do both. Sometimes one's going to take a little bit of precedence over the other, but in time you can eventually make sure that that balance is there.
Dr. Hall, are you up to speaking for us?
I'll try. So, I tell my staff and I tell my over 1,500 doctors that I have to oversee. Home comes first. Whatever home is to you, whether home is your body and your temple, whether home is your family, your loved one, your child, your spouse, significant other, whatever is important, that has to come first. Because if you don't take care of home, you can't take care of anybody else. So I have some absolutes. You absolutely have to take time off. You take time off, you better not check your email. I don't check my emails on weekend. If you need to reach me, you text me. You have to create the boundaries so that you actually have people respect your time. So if it's something important, text me. I'm not looking at emails over the weekend for work. I'm not doing it. So there's certain things that you really have to allow to put some boundaries in, and then there's some things that you just have to make rituals, right? I have a very good close set of friends. Every 3 to 4 months, I wish it was 3 to 4 weeks, but every 3 to 4 months, we get together, we take a trip, or we actually have some kind of experience. That's important. I have one teenage, well, now she's 20 years old now, daughter, a junior in college, and she's a priority. I have to make sure she calls, I answer the phone. She told me something long ago, and another attending told me this: you can never buy back this time with your family. And one time when I was running the COVID hospital, it was very intense. I mean, everybody in the state of Maryland had COVID was calling me. My daughter said to me, and this was the wake up call: Mom, you're here, but you're not present. That was a wake up call, that you have to be present for your loved ones. And then you also have to be present for yourself. So do the things that makes you feel good. I have a wonderful massage chair that I get in every other day for about 30 minutes when I come home, and sit in the bathtub, get your nails done, hair done. I mean, do the things that make you feel good. Talk on the phone, connect with people, connect with family. Take that time to do things that make you feel good. Take care of yourself, eat well, exercise, just do stuff that makes you feel good. Because if you don't spend time on yourself, nobody else is going to prioritize you. So that's the most important thing. You got to take care of home first.
I love that massage chair idea.
Oh.
So, hey, that's going to be my gift to myself soon. Okay, thank you for that
Absolutely.
great advice.
Thank you. Dr. Achong, in your opinion, what are common mistakes that Black women physicians make when they're striving for leadership?
Common mistakes. I think that perhaps missteps or disconnects that I would describe is I think you need to know who to trust. I think along the way, trust is very big in our community. We all know that. That's a major construct in the way that we see improved outcomes with our community, with our patients. This is well known. And this is something that is seemingly a conundrum to others who are not Black physicians about how the trust that overrides the historic distrust that is within the healthcare system matters. And I feel that when you're coming up in the healthcare system and you're going through medical training, it's a time that is very rigorous and challenging. And it's important to have mentors and sponsors and family supports, as we talked about earlier, that help you do what needs to be accomplished. I think not trusting the right person. For me, I think realizing that you have to sometimes go outside of the box or around the box to get around obstacles. When I was in training, it was almost as if I was in a different program compared to my counterparts. I had 5 other female European American counterparts, and I felt like I was in a different residency program. I didn't know that there were opportunities out there that just were not being given to me, shared with me. I did not have access to it. I didn't know. So I think realizing that you can't do it on your own, that there are other support systems out there, to avail yourself of resources that you can access through organizations or through others, or just searching the internet. There are so many opportunities out there that we may not know about because we don't have those connections. Even in terms of navigating financing medical school education, that's something that is an entry barrier for so many young people. They just don't know. So there still are many opportunities out there. But I think that that is an area that I think is a disconnect, not so much a mistake because you don't know what you don't know, but realizing that where there is a will, there is a way, and there are opportunities are out there, and there are people who are willing to support you realize that dream, whatever it is, whether it's health leadership or just becoming a doctor to begin with.
Thank you, Dr. Ashon. Dr. Washington, I'm just going to switch it up a little bit here for you, unless you wanted to respond
I
to that
wanted to
question.
respond to
Okay.
that. One of the things that I will say is a misstep that sometimes we make is, we go in full speed ahead, doing a lot of things, doing extra things over, above, and beyond, and then being disappointed when we're not recognized for doing all of those extra things with the promotion for the promotion. And so oftentimes what we have to do is, do those extra things in as much as you would like to do them. But then you have to be self-promoting in some ways because you want other people to know that you did those things and you were the reason that those goals were accomplished. And so doing it in a very tactful way, and that's why I say it's so important to have appropriate mentors and sponsors to be able to speak favorably about you in those rooms that you're not in. So if you were the worker bee on a particular project, then you want your mentor, your sponsor to promote you in the meetings with the higher level executives to say, oh, well, Dr. Washington was really the reason why we were able to accomplish this, and she did this, this, and this. And so, again, that comes from developing those relationships. But I will say, don't just do all the hard work and think that you're going to be recognized because oftentimes it doesn't happen. And I can say personally that I know a number of folks that did that exact thing, and they were very, very disappointed when there was a department chair position or there was a leadership position that they were not selected for.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Jones, with the advancement of AI and all of the retrenchment that's now happening with DEI initiatives, how do you see this impacting the advancement of Black women physicians in their roles?
I'm going to take that in a two separate part type question because I had just come off of a meeting right before this on the fact that DE&I is being dismantled through a lot of our health systems, and where are we going with this now? Um, Looking to think about how AI is playing a role in advancing or keeping equity for just Black physician leaders in general. I think we're always going to be needed, without a doubt. We are the driving force. So I don't think AI is going to replace our strong Black physician leaders. I think they'll help to support us, but I don't think it will ever replace us. We are still needed because, again, it is a machine learning tool, and it hasn't learned enough from our Black physician leadership women. So we're going to be around. We're not going anywhere. And as DNI, they can change it and call it whatever they want. We still are DEI. Um, the next few years will be challenging, but as long as we stand together, as long as we are all part of NMA, and as long as we stand as a team and we make it to DC and to let them know that we are one, we will be strong as a leader and Black physician leaders.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. Dr. Achong, could you add something to that for us? Unmute, please. We want to hear the wisdom.
Sorry about that. Technology, there you go. It is such a big question. What I would say in terms of bringing together the different threads that we've had in previous questions is that chief information officers, those that actually oversee this space within health systems, is an emerging field within leadership, roles, physician and non-physician roles that speak to data and analysis, big data and artificial intelligence, machine learning. I think that I would encourage all of the participants on tonight's call to educate themselves about this space. Because quite frankly, if we don't have more individuals who look like us, URM physicians and non-physicians in this space, we are going to be left out. Because quite frankly, data would support that whoever is crafting this, a person crafts artificial intelligence. If we are not there as these systems are being built out, we are likely to be further disenfranchised. So I think that these are areas and fields that we need to have better representation in. Oftentimes when I'm working with medical students, they wonder about what field to go into. And I'm like, any field that you go into, you're needed as a Black physician. And I would encourage others to learn as much as they can about this space, not have it be a black box. I think that for me, I have really stretched myself to learn as much as I can. And when you learn how there can be great bias and discrimination in the formulation and design of these systems, I think it's a great field to go into. So I would think that everyone should have a very watchful and informed approach to learning more about this space.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask one more question of each of you, and then we're going to take the questions that are in the chat.
Great.
And the question is, what is the best career move you made that helped you reach the C-suite? Dr. Hall, I see those eyes thinking.
I'm thinking about that one.
Best career move to the C-suite.
I would say saying yes when you think you should say no, right? So I was in my position doing my own thing, and someone saw something in me that I didn't know that I had, and they came to ask me. Now, I could have said no from the beginning, and I probably wouldn't be on the call with you guys tonight. But I said yes, even though it was like I never did this before, but I'm smart. I can figure this out. So having the confidence to say yes when sometimes you may not see the immediate benefit of something, but know that everything you do or don't do lines you up for a bigger purpose. And that's why you really have to sometimes do things that you may not feel like you get an immediate benefit from, but it actually it sets you up for something greater. So I would say saying yes when I probably in my back of my mind said, well, why am I saying yes? I should say no. But it was the smartest thing that I did to accept a position that opened up other positions.
Thank you. Dr. Jones.
Yes, for me, it was stepping out on trust, knowing that God had a master plan for me. Because similar to like what Dr. Hall says, sometimes you question some of your decisions, thinking about yes. And for me, it was knowing that things would be okay if I decided to transition from a private practice into taking the leap of faith and going into a more leadership role. I was comfortable in my space because I was there for 23 and a half years, but making that transition was going into a new space. So knowing that it was okay to trust and believe, that made a big difference for me, and that helped to grow my leadership abilities.
Thank you. Dr. Washington.
Yeah, so for me, I would say that similar to what Dr. Hall mentioned, saying yes to after being asked to do a number of things. Oftentimes, the road to physician leadership, you have to take on some things that are unpaid. So you won't necessarily get the compensation for some of the work that you're doing, but it will give you the experience, it will give you the exposure, and it will give you the accomplishments that you can document on a resume that will make you more appealing. So that has been extremely valuable for me as I've gone through my physician leadership journey. I think also for me was getting my MBA because it kind of switched my mode of thinking to thinking more like a business person, and being able to blend those two together, the clinical aspect and the business aspect, to really be able to be a good leader.
Thank you. Dr. Atcha.
I guess this would be a great segue to the questions from the audience. For me, truly, it is being involved in the NMA. Although I attended medical school here in New York City, I had not met a Black physician until I actually connected with a future NMA president, Dr. Lucy Perez. And she gave me such inspiration and motivation, along with other mentors when I was very, very junior, just starting out as a medical student. And those were the people, the individuals that inspired me to do more, to strive for more, to know that there was more. So I would say that being part of the NMA has been a huge boost to my leadership confidence, abilities, and capacity. And there's more to go, and the NMA colleagues are with me in that.
Thank you. Now we'll go to the audience questions. Ladies, what are your favorite personal development or leadership books geared to physicians early in their career in physician leadership? Dr. Washington.
So there are a number of key books that I've really taken in, and I'm always reading something. So a couple of the books that come to mind are, and they're not necessarily specific to physicians. Well, the first one is Dr. Bonnie Mason's Power Moves book that talks about negotiating contracts, and putting you in a good position as you're going through these career transitions. That's been a very valuable book for me. There's another book that I really enjoyed reading and have used a lot of the principles is a book on negotiation called Never Split the Difference. That has been a very valuable read for me. Um, 48 Laws of Power, just to see how the world works, has been valuable. And then one of my more recent reads is Choosing Gratitude, and it talks about how we should really embrace gratitude, expressing gratitude as a form of leadership, as a form of being an empathetic leader, expressing gratitude to our teams, which is really kind of counterproductive to what the healthcare space is usually like. We know that as physicians, oftentimes we don't get praise when we do things well, but we do get criticism when things don't go well. And so those have been very valuable to me in my journey.
Thank you. Dr. Jones, on the
Yes.
issue of trust, how have you recognized the signs that someone is trustworthy and can support you on your journey to leadership?
That is a very, very interesting question because again, you have to, for me, um, it's something that has to be built. And what do I mean by that is the fact that you're going to see how you work with the person, how they work with you. If they're able to be almost like a mentor slash sponsor for you, and if they're able to bring you along and get you into the spaces that you need to for leadership growth, that's somebody that you can trust. Because again, with them doing that, it helps to bring and strengthen your leadership goals. So that is somebody that you can develop a trustworthy relationship with. But again, excuse me, it may not be something that you can continue doing with somebody because again, trust comes from both sides and from both avenues. So it is something that comes over time. So you have to be able to develop that. So trust is something that grows over time. It's not something that is inherent with the person you're building it with.
Thank you. Dr. Hall, what is the best way to approach a C-suite executive for the purpose of requesting sponsorship?
Just ask. Really, just ask. But you really need to, not all mentors mean you well. So you really, I have this thing I say about the peanut gallery, and that you may have people in places and spaces that may not be encouraging. So I would say, choose well. So unfortunately, sometimes you may think, well, a person of color would guide me or lead me. My biggest issue with someone in the suite was with someone with color, two people with color. So it's just one of those things, back to that, who can you trust? Just being very careful about that and understanding that. I was looking for a book that I read. It's called The First, the Few, the Only: How Women of Color Can Redefine Power in Corporate America. Um, I read that book on a vacation. When I decided to leave my job and start my new job, a friend of mine gave me that book. And it was just so powerful because a lot of the words that crossed over, and really, whether it's corporate America, business, or corporate healthcare, it's still corporate. And some of those principles actually stand out. The other thing too, I've been asked, again, another space that I've never been in. I've been asked to be a program director for a new fellowship called Healthcare Administration and Leadership Management. It's called HALM, HALM. I will be submitting next week, and it'll be the 8th program in the country that is actually a 1-year fellowship for physicians who are wanting to go into the C-suite. Because a lot of this stuff, there's no organized way of learning about this. There's American Academy of Physician Leadership. There's a physician executive. There's a lot of those other groups that are out there that have courses and conferences that I would recommend that people can try to go to try to get some experience. But I do want to just announce that next year I will be taking my first fellow. So if anyone's interested, let me know. But it is a unique opportunity to get the skills, and hopefully will allow people to have their resume be more attractive, and not just have the degree, but actually go through all the different areas that we need to do and all the things we have to know and understand to be a healthcare executive. So hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you. Dr. Achong, so many of us are looking to change from a clinical setting due to burnout. Can you speak to us about burnout in this career setting?
Well, burnout is a major concern and has been recognized as such for at least the past decade and a half. Particularly in certain specialties, it's higher of an issue. I don't know that there's data to support that Black physician executives have higher burnout than the greater body of physicians, Black physicians, but I do know that it seems to reason that it would be. I think that when we speak about the area of burnout, I think it comes down to what is really success. I think that there are big issues that are kind of encased in some of these discussions about what is leadership, what is success, what is life really about. I know when we had our earlier discussion about balance, with bigger roles comes bigger stressors. And I think that there is a greater appreciation post-pandemic of the importance of maintaining your mental and physical health. And then often physicians are the ones who don't really take care of themselves. I was part of, when I was on the board, there was a study that was done that looked at us actually evaluating our own health. So at one of the annual meetings, they measured blood pressure readings, and we did urinalysis, and we checked cholesterol levels, and there was lots of work to be done. Many of our own colleagues do not even check and get their own annual exams done. So I think that burnout is very real. And I think that particularly for our community where we are at risk for virtually everything, every cancer, every chronic health condition, mental and physical, at higher risk. It's very important as you enter into leadership to understand and to fully appreciate that if you don't have your health, you don't have much, and you can't represent the work. So I think that for those that are thinking about leadership, it is even more critically important to have those areas in place and to do that self-care.
Mhm. Thank you so much for that. Dr. Washington, how do you know when you're ready to apply for a C-suite position?
So I'll say that you don't really know when you're ready. You just apply. You know, for me, I applied to several positions. You know, I started applying for leadership positions back when I finished my MBA in 2014. And so I will say that, you know, in my mind, I thought that having the MBA was gonna be my, you know, rabbit in a hat that was gonna make me a good candidate for a leadership position. However, sitting in a leadership position, knowing what I know now, I was not ready back then to be in that space. Again, I would say, you know, documenting your accomplishments, talking to other people, other folks in a role that you want to see if your path is similar, see if you have similar qualifications, you know, and then when you get to that point where you are similarly trained and have a similar level of accomplishments, and maybe not even that level of accomplishments, because I know sometimes we're overqualified once we actually apply for the positions, then I would say go ahead and apply. Again, I also cannot um, stress enough the importance of making sure that your resume and CV is top notch. Having interview skills, coaching, or what have you, to be able to deliver strongly when you show up for the interview. Because usually, if you look good on paper, then you'll be invited to the interview, and kind of how you show up there is going to be what seals the deal. So making sure that you have that experience so that you'll be a formidable candidate. And then doing your research to make sure that you understand what the pay structure will be for those positions. And so that you can negotiate your salaries appropriately, because we also know that as Black women, we're often underpaid for those positions as well. And so that's going to involve developing some relationships, because, you know, you can't just go up to someone and ask them how much money they make. You have to develop a relationship with them. And, you know, maybe you don't want to be that transparent, but you can get a ballpark. Okay, is this salary range reasonable? Is this what you've seen for other positions? And then talking to the recruiters, they'll tell you what the salary range is for those positions. And if you talk to a number of individuals, that are recruiting for positions, you'll get a gauge of what the salary range is for the positions that you're seeking.
Thank you so much for that. Dr. Jones, what advice would you give a mid or later career clinician on how to move into the leadership space?
I would say find a good mentor. Find a program like Dr. Hall is going to be doing with the fellowship program. Those kinds of positions will help to guide somebody into a leadership space. Just making sure that they know it's available, and just to not be afraid to tap into it. Because if you don't try, you're not going to advance. So come to the door. Make sure to step through the door. That's the most important part. Don't be afraid to knock on that door and go through the door.
Thank you.
I also want to add, try to do some process improvement courses, Lean Sigma, Six Sigma, Lean training. I mean, a lot of those courses gives you some of the tools of how you look at problems and solve them. They have a lot of them that are online, not necessarily geared to healthcare, but $2,000-$3,000, you can get the training. You could become a black belt, green belt. But that now people are looking for that level of PI certification that will boost up your resume, but also teach you some of the skills of how you look at a situation and a problem and how do you solve them. So again, definitely, I just want to add that will definitely help to build you up. And that's something simply you can do online. A lot of hospital HRs, they may have those courses, believe it or not, but you can do it online if you want to.
Thank you. Dr. Achang, how have your administrative leadership experiences informed or engaged or impacted the relationships of traditionally trained healthcare hospital administrators?
I guess I'm trying to understand the question. Is that a question from the audience? Could they come off
Yes, it is.
and ask? I would love to hear the question. If they can come off, can they come off mute and ask? Because I'm not following, I'm not tracking the question.
I don't believe they have that capacity.
Okay.
I'll read it one more time.
Okay, sure, I'm going to get it.
How have your administrative leadership experiences informed, engaged, impacted your relationships or impressions of traditionally trained healthcare or hospital administrators?
Right, right. Well, in my roles in managed care, we're dealing with a difference in scale. So one of the most powerful aspects of going from doing clinical medicine, where you're just seeing a patient one-on-one in the operating room or in the emergency room or in the office. And then when you go to the space of managed care, you're dealing with multiples of scale. So you're dealing with thousands, tens of thousands, in my role, millions of patients. So I think that what needs to be understood is that the healthcare field is a business like none other. America spends as much on healthcare and probably more, it's projected, than even the military. So more and more money is going into this. There's a great deal of profiteering that is going on. So I think that the perspective that you have when you are doing operations and business management is that you really understand how these decisions that are made far away seemingly impact that individual relationship with the patient at the level of the hospital. So I hope that that gets at an answer to the question. I'd be happy if you put qualification in the chat if I didn't answer the question. But I think that when you go to a level of administration that is higher and you're dealing with larger scale, you understand all of the constructs that are behind how the lights stay on in the hospital. How do we pay the salary for all the nurses? Why are there metrics devised this way? And it really actually inspires you to think about the policy and what's really driving the healthcare system. There's much more to it than meets the eye. It's extremely complicated. But I think that that's the part that I enjoy in terms of trying to unpack those complexities and to understand it better to inform our people.
Dr. Achang, I was just advised that we can actually
Oh,
unmute that
okay.
individual.
Wonderful.
Jennifer, can you unmute Joy Calloway, please, if she's still on the call?
I am, ladies. This is Joy. I'm the executive director with the National Medical Association. I am so loving this conversation, and you almost got there. You I guess ultimately did get there. I was just interested now that these amazing physician leaders are now in administration. Just wondering how your experiences have informed the relationship or changed the relationship or your impression perhaps of those of us traditionally trained. I am the MBA, MHSA type who's been in that track of healthcare administration. While, as you move from the clinical work, someone quoted, I can learn your job better than you can learn mine, which I thought was a cool statement. I'm just wondering how your experiences now have impacted your relationships or your impressions with administrators that you might have had prior to this role. And the physician that just spoke really was starting to get there. Now you all see a different picture, a different perspective of healthcare, and understand the depth and complexity that may be different than you all thought before. Great conversation, ladies. I'm loving it.
Thank you, Ms. Calloway.
I can chime
Dr.
in and
Adjon?
say that I have a lot more respect for those individuals who are in healthcare leadership, particularly those that don't have the clinical training, just because a lot of the decisions that they're having to make are extremely hard. Um, Understanding how everything within hospitals and health systems work together, that there are external influences from outside of, from governmental, community-based, socioeconomic-based factors that you have no control over, but are influencing the decisions you make. It has brought to light a new perspective for me, for healthcare leaders. Healthcare leadership is hard. I think for me, when I was clinically practicing medicine and that was all that I was doing, I was like, that's easy. I'm not sure what they're doing. I could do that. And being in the space is challenging. It really is. A lot of the decisions that you make on a daily basis, you understand the impact. You understand that it impacts, thousands, hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of lives. And so that means that you have to make the right choice. So that's been my biggest epiphany with my transition into healthcare leadership.
Thank you. Dr. Jones, how do you manage marketing yourself and your accomplishments using like social media, LinkedIn, or any other, vehicle?
I try and keep my LinkedIn as up to date as possible. Any changes, any promotions I get, I tend to put it on LinkedIn. I am from the little more mature age group, so I also still deal with Facebook, so I'll put things on Facebook as well. But I'm tapping more into Instagram. And because again, that is where a lot of your younger executives are uh, they're on Instagram and TikTok. But again, I think if we use Instagram and we use LinkedIn, those are good platforms for promoting growth for leadership.
Thank you. Dr. Washington, did you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I do think that kind of marketing and promoting yourself is really important. I do have, I have my personal social media pages and then I have my professional pages. The professional pages I do usually post health updates. I'll post this things like this panel discussion that we're on tonight, making sure to keep everything above board because everything is, publicly available. We have to understand that our patients can look us up online and on social media, and they do that. Our employers can do that as well, and so it's really important that we place ourselves in a positive light. I do place a lot of things on LinkedIn, and then I'll do some Facebook and Instagram as well. I think it's great to, have yourself listed on things that you do. I personally do a lot of health equity work, and I've been, tapped by individuals in the health equity space because of things that I've posted on LinkedIn. Also, things about physician leadership I post as well, and I've been tapped by, other folks in physician leadership organizations that have asked me to come and do speaking engagements, to talk to other individuals. I get a lot of folks that reach out to me and say, hey, are you interested in just having a 30-minute conversation? I'm interested in doing what you do. So that is a way to, kind of keep yourself in a positive light and keep yourself relevant. I've had recruiters reach out to me and ask me, "Hey, we're recruiting for this position based on what we see on your LinkedIn and the posts and the work that you do. We think you'd be great for this role." So it helps.
Thank you. Dr. Hall, how do you handle situations where you do not feel valued and are giving tasks that really don't advance you professionally?
Oh, I joke around and say physicians walk with their feet. So, and they talk with their feet, I mean, seriously. So you allow yourself to be in environments and situations where you're to be valued. But sometimes you may get to a place that despite you doing your best job, despite you doing more than others, and being politically correct, that you're not being valued. You have to only allow, I said this before, how you allow people to treat you. So sometimes it either you stay and sometimes you need to go. And I always say God opens and closes doors because there may be another opportunity that you may be better suited for. And I think a lot of times, I think as women, we tend to be self-inflicting and we stay a lot longer than we should. Now, don't jump around every 2 years, every time you have an argument because your resume won't look good. But you have to figure out what's your degree and thermometer for resilience, and figure out how some things it makes sense to push through because the opportunity may be there that you wouldn't have if you left too early. And then there's sometimes for me, I have a 3-strike you're out rule. So if you've done something 3 times, it's time for me to go. So sometimes if things are continuous, then it may not be the right environment for you, it may not be the right place for you or the place where you need to shine. So I think we just have to, and there's no exact recipe for this, but you really have to make sure that you're valued and you need to know when you need to stay and also when it's time for you to go.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do want to say one other thing. It's really important to get involved in your community, get on boards, get on nonprofits, get in different spaces where you may be a speaker or you're being asked to do things. I mean, that's another way of getting recognition other than social media, and that you end up being a subject matter expert or you end up being something that you make connections that you may not have made in your own circles. So definitely seek out any kinds of boards, nonprofits, and other places and spaces where you can connect and meet people. I just want to give that word of advice.
Thank you. So our time is drawing short. We've got 2 minutes left. And so we're going to do a round robin. I'm going to ask each one of our panelists to give us that golden nugget. What is that one thing that you're going to push out to this audience for success? And let's start with Dr. Ashon.
For me, I will say that success is the greatest characteristic for humanity. I believe, to me, that is a guiding principle is integrity. And I think in healthcare, there's so much that you can do. There's so much subjectivity. You have to always do what's right and see things to completion. So I think that maintaining integrity in whatever level of leadership you're in is all important.
Thank you so much, Dr. Washington.
Yeah, one of the things that I would say would be kind of key to success in leadership is just making sure that you present yourself well. That is, when you physically show up, being well prepared for meetings that you're attending, being on time, looking the part that is on paper, making sure that your resume, your CV has all your accomplishments and documented well. That's your public and social media presence, making sure that when you're seen in the community, that you are viewed in a favorable light. That has been one of the things that I think has been really key for me in physician leadership. And I think that I have seen others who haven't done that quite as well, and they've struggled on their leadership journey.
Thank you so much. Dr. Jones.
I think what was said before is very true, but with that, I would like to add that also being transparent and true, because trust grows. As you see, trust is one of my major words, but being transparent, making sure that you are bringing forth the most important aspect of yourself that will help your success and your leadership growth. So again, it is extremely important to understand that you need to grow and be the best person that you are. And when you get to that point, you're going to start to shine. They're going to see it in you. And that transparency is going to come across like a beacon of light.
Thank you. Dr. Hall.
You belong. I can't overstress self-esteem and professionalism and sense of confidence. Black women, we're smarter. We have figured out how to do it all. Sometimes it can be a little tiring, but we really have figured out how, for some of us who have families, we figured out how to be able to have the personal life and to have the professional life. But know that you belong. Take care of home, take care of yourself, and have confidence that you can do anything. Just be smarter and not feel like you have to work harder. So but this has been fun. This has been a great panel and just really a nice evening with a bunch of smart women.
Thank you so much, ladies. It has been my pleasure to be your moderator. And as we get ready to sign off, I will hand this over to Doctors Crystalline Washington and Dr. Reed for final comments.
Thank you so much to our lovely panel. We jump-started the conversation with our illustrious president, Dr. Kane. Dr. Straker, you did a wonderful job with questions and letting everything flow. Dr. Washington, you know you always had my heart from the first time I met you, I think in Atlanta. Dr. Jones is my ride or die. Dr. Hall, you know you are special too. And Dr. Achan is the other half of our illustrious section of the physician executive section of the NMA. And if you are not a member of the NMA, you heard multiple times about the importance of being a member of the NMA and all of the lovely skills that people learned about leadership, about the importance of networking, negotiation, because we need to make sure we get the money and we know that we are worth more than anyone ever wants to pay us for. And I guess the key thing is to remember we do belong. We are not imposters. We are where we need to be. We are fighters. The fight does not end with today's conversation. It will continue tomorrow morning when we show up at our respective jobs. And we have to learn to make sure we are doing what we're supposed to be doing for our community because we know better. We need to make sure that we show up not only looking good and powerful, but being healthy on the inside. And when it's time to take a rest, make sure you take a rest and respect your body. And we are close to the bedtime hours for many of us. And I am going to kick it over to my lovely other co-host, Dr. Crystalline Washington Kelly.
Thank you so much. And I echo what Dr. Reed said. Thank you guys all. Thank you to our lovely moderator. Thank you to our esteemed panelists, to Dr. Kane for joining us as well for opening remarks. We'd also like to thank our administrative staff for helping to organize this and helping with the Zoom webinar as well. Thank you so much, Jennifer Young, and for everybody for lending us your time this Wednesday evening. I just want to take a moment to reflect on what we've gained here today. We've explored strategies, challenges, and most importantly, opportunities that exist for us as Black women physicians to step into leadership, to claim our seat at the table, and to also drive change from the top down. We know knowledge alone isn't enough. What we do with it is what truly matters. And each of us has a responsibility to take what we've learned here today and put it into action, whether it's advocating for ourselves, mentoring the next generation, or breaking down systemic barriers. We must move forward with intention intention, with courage, and with an unshakable belief in our worth and our purpose. There's no space too big for you. There's no title too grand, no leadership role beyond your reach. You are not just capable, you are necessary. Your vision, your voice, your expertise, and your lived experiences are exactly what medicine needs at its highest levels. So I leave you with this charge: stand firm in your ideals, never waver in your goals, lead with excellence and integrity. And when you step into that C suite, make sure that you hold the door open for those coming behind you. The future of healthcare leadership is ours to shape. Let's work together. Have a great night.